My next guest is former U.S. Trade Representative and current Vice Chairman and President of Strategic Growth at Mastercard, Ambassador Michael Froman. Ambassador Froman, Mike, I may slip the mic, but Ambassador Froman, great to see you for joining us. I don't know if you've heard any of the discussion earlier, but when I was talking to Congressman John Katko, it sounded almost as if I was talking to you. It was digital IDs. We got to, get trade right. It can be powerful, but we got to look at the impact. We know this. And he listed down an agenda on how to get the equities right, on innovation, on trade, on competitiveness. And so I won't ask you if you just agree with him all, but I would just ask, can you give me the Mike Froman playbook on getting trade and technology right in these times? Oops, I think you're muted, my friend.
It's sorry about that. It's great to see you, and I was delighted that James in the previous discussion mentioned USTR as one of the critical roles in helping to drive technology innovations. I agree with them that it very much is. Look, I think we've got to first and foremost look domestically at what we need to do to help support a vibrant and innovative ecosystem, and that's everything from making sure we've got the proper infrastructure in place, that broadband is every place that it needs to be, that we're investing in R&D, and that we're creating an environment where individuals and small businesses can participate fully in the digital economy. Digital technologies, of course, created some great opportunities, but it could also runs the risk of creating new digital divides. And so we want to make sure that communities that have been excluded, who are perhaps outside the digital economy, outside the financial system, are able to be included because of these new tools and are able to achieve their way on a path towards prosperity accordingly. We certainly saw that with COVID. And, on trade, I think there's a lot that we could do in a very positive way to build on some of the work that was done in USMCA, with US-Japan, and TPP, of course, to begin to lay out rules for an open digital economy and create an ecosystem where like-minded countries can come together and ensure that we're protecting privacy, that we live by strong data responsibility rules, and at the same time, create the innovation that comes from a digital economy.
Ambassador, yesterday, Richard Edelman, I think you know Richard, of Edelman PR, issued the annual Edelman Trust Barometer, and I interviewed him yesterday evening. And in that, when you look at the relative levels of trust in the United States of media and of politicians, they have hardly been lower. Businesses are much higher, and it had risen in the 6 months since this had been done mid-year. But when you kind of look at this question of trust is the currency of a society, right? It's the currency of interaction. And I guess right now, the IT sector is part of the trust challenge as well, where the IT sector can help us live better lives. It's helped us get online during the time of COVID. But there are also a lot of questions that we were just discussing with AI and facial recognition software. And I just want to ask you kind of an out-of-the-box question. If you were helping to sculpt that question of restoring trust and having technology to be a robust partner in solving some of these trust deficits, what would you put on the table?
So I think first, certainly the issue around how data is managed and dealt with is absolutely critical. In our view, at Mastercard, we talk about how the data, your personal data, belongs to you. You own it. You define how it's going to be used. You should benefit from it. And our role as a company and our role as a society is to protect it, particularly from cyber intrusion. So getting data right, I think, is absolutely critical. I think getting inclusion right is also critical to building that trust. People won't trust a system that they don't feel that they can participate in fully. And so ensuring that people have the tools they need to fully participate in the digital economy. And that goes to education and goes to infrastructure like broadband, but it also goes to creating the kinds of products and services that can bring people into the system. We saw that during COVID, that whether it was governments getting assistance into the hands of individuals or small businesses going from brick and mortar to going online and staying in touch with their customers and their suppliers, how critical it is to get online, to be part of the digital economy, and to do so in a safe and secure manner.
You recently tweeted, Mike, I follow you on Twitter, in case you didn't know. You said trade done right is a powerful tool for improving the lives of people in the U.S. and around the world. what do we need to do to get trade right? We're talking about IT, and we've just had speaker after speaker after speaker this morning basically say we can't divorce ourselves from the trade area, though there were some perhaps recently who wanted to. But how do we get back into an area where there's an embrace of trade? I shouldn't put it this way, not manic neoliberal trade, but sensible trade where you get the equities right and Americans can trust the benefits of trade as well.
Well, first, I agree with what President-elect Biden has laid out, saying we have to get our domestic house in order first and foremost. And that goes to all sorts of issues around job creation, around infrastructure, but it also goes to modernizing, for example, our benefits environment. You've got a lot of people who are holding down 2 or 3 part-time jobs, not getting benefits from any one of them. The social safety net isn't there the way it used to be to create that kind of financial security that people need to trust in international trade. And so creating a robust, portable benefit scheme that allows people to build financial security, including retirement security, is going to be awfully critical to this. I think beyond that, there's a lot that can be done right now in trade, particularly around these new economy issues like the digital economy, which are less controversial than some of other trade issues, but are ever more important. 80% of our economy, 80% of our people work in the services sector. Manufacturing is absolutely critical to our economy, and so is services. And we need to make sure that we're using all of the tools at our disposal, including our trade policy, to level the playing field and create rules of the road that allow us to continue to succeed as a leader in services. We have a $250 billion export surplus in services, and at the same time help create those jobs here in the United States that help drive that innovative sector.
Mike, we're getting near the end of our time, unfortunately, because I could talk to you all day, as you know, and I have in the past. But when the Obama administration came in and you came in as the U.S. trade representative, one of the innovations that President Obama did is they brought in a chief technology officer, I think Megan Smith, and they basically said, we're going to have a digital evangelist in the U.S. government that goes around and creates a transformation in practice, the practice of governance and government on the digital side of things. And, I guess my assessment is that was interesting and a good initiative. But when you look at the Russian hack and you look at the fragility of the U.S. Digital infrastructure of how government operates, digital literacy, I just worry that we're way behind where we should be. Tell me where I'm wrong and tell me how the Biden team's going to fix it.
Well, look, I think the creation of the chief digital officer was a good first step, and the U.S. Digital Service, which I understand the Trump administration continued, is a very important innovation from the Obama administration. But we do need to go further, and the more we are dependent on data and dependent on the digital economy, the more vulnerable we are to cyber intrusions, and that's why we really need to double down on our cyber protection, make sure we've got the right data practices in place. And in my view, take some of the lessons and the tools being developed in the private sector and make sure they're available to the public sector and the civic sector. We've created something called data.org with the Rockefeller Foundation, whose whole goal is to help build the field of data science for social impact. How do you take all of that great innovation that's happening in the private sector and make sure it's being applied to the major economic and social challenges of our time, and make sure that it's being done and that we're using evidence-based policymaking in a way that is safe and secure.
Well, Ambassador Michael Froman, Vice Chairman and the Head of Strategic Growth for Mastercard, former U.S. Trade Representative, I want to also commend you. I mean, I had the opportunity of interviewing you and recently raised it with Jane Goodall, of course, the great environmentalist concerned for gorillas in Africa, about your work in trade on endangered species and artifacts. Is one of the most moving conversations I've had out there. So these conversations are not always sterile. You brought to life what we were doing in really horrible ways, or seeing happen around the world with regards to trade in these exotic species and endangered species. So you made an impact. So thank you so much, Mike Froman.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.